So hi, Bob Paff here. It is December the 7th, 2021, and I have the pleasure of sitting here and interviewing Walter Lee Cuje. And we're just going to chat. We're going to talk about your 86, almost 87 years
that's correct.
On this earth. So,
Yes,
so many things I want to talk to you about. There are a lot of things that you and I have in common. I want to talk about the bowling pins, and you look amazing, I have to tell you, for 86. I want to see your driver's license before we leave here. It's absolutely, whatever you're doing, we want to get the secret sauce. But tell me the origin. Let's go way back. Let's start with the origin, the family origin, the name Cuje. Where does the name Cuje come from?
Well, actually, the best I can understand it, it's a German name, and my older relatives, which I never really knew, but they all did talk German.
Okay.
And from what I understand, my grandfather came over here to Ellis Island, and he was an upholsterer. That was his trade, upholstering furniture and all. And my father was able to do that on the side. He never had a business or anything, but he was a pretty good upholsterer, yep. My father ended up being a truck driver all his life. And
so when you say we're here, the family settled in New Jersey? Because we're right in Rumson, New Jersey now. So where is here? Where did everybody settle?
Well, my father and his family kind of settled in White Plains, New York.
White Plains, New York, okay.
Yeah. But my grandfather had the upholstery business. He was in New York City itself, the best I know of.
Okay.
And my mother was married once, and she had 3 children. And for some reason, her husband disappeared in life. I left her with 3 children.
Wow.
And my father came along and met my mother. And after a few years, they had 6 children. So my mother actually had 9 children of her own. But my father took those first 3 children in and raised them just like there was his own kids.
Okay.
There was no differentiation between the first family and the second family. The first 3 kids were older than I am, and I was never really close enough age to be
so there
close
was a big
to
gap.
them.
You really
yeah, it was a big gap in between there.
Yeah.
But the 6 children that my father had, I was very friendly with all of them.
Where were you in that order?
In that order, I had a brother, George was the oldest, a brother Leonard was the second, a brother James was the third, I was the 4th, and then I had a young brother, Bob, and along came my father had a daughter, Margie. And of course, with all these boys and then a baby girl, she became like his prized possession.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
and you were the last surviving of the siblings? Everybody else is gone?
Of all the 9 children altogether, I'm the last survivor, yes.
You're the last survivor?
Yeah.
Okay.
My brother, George, was the oldest of the sons, and he died 6 months ago. He was 90 years old. Yeah.
So you've got good genes in the family.
Yeah, yes,
right?
Indeed. Yes, but the only problem is he was a hard worker, never drank, never smoked, so he made it to 90. And then the second brother, Leonard, he was kind of a wild guy. He was a big beer drinker. Okay. We were all pretty well beer drinkers. But anyway, he was a big beer drinker.
He was a big beer drinker.
Yeah, and a big smoker.
Okay.
So he died when he's probably like 55 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he did a lot of damage to his body. But he was one of these crazy over-the-road truck drivers, you know. I think he had a gallon every town he went to on his. He died for Allied long distance, and I think he had 3 or 4 wives, and he never got divorces.
Right. So he had a colorful life.
Yeah, he had a very colorful life. Even though he died early, he had a good life.
Right.
Yeah.
He condensed it all in a few short years there. Wow.
And then my brother James was next, and he only died about 3 years ago. He never got married, never had children. And then my brother Bob, was the youngest son. He worked for the railroad for 35, 40 years. And he passed away because he had a bad case of diabetes.
Okay.
That's what did him in. And then my sister Margie was the pride of my father. She died when the COVID-19 hit. She caught it and passed away. So,
I'm sorry to hear
and the
that.
first three, of course, like I said, that my mother had were older people than I am, and they, through the years, passed away.
So, Walt, I've got to ask you, I mean, I've got a list of things here and I want to cover, and I want to get your perspective on where we are in 2021. And you were born in 1935, right? So when you were born, as I recall, I'm thinking back here, it was probably in the middle of Roosevelt was the president when you were born, I think, right?
Probably was,
Yes. So I think it was in the middle of maybe his first term because he had 4. What is your secret sauce? I mean, I'm looking at you. You look fantastic. You're a handsome guy. I understand you're quite a ladies' man. We're going to talk about that. What do you attribute to the longevity of your life? And I feel the energy and the positivity. You look like a guy who just has enjoyed his life.
Well, I am lucky to say I have enjoyed my whole life. Even when I was a young guy, I enjoyed my life. But what I attributed to be in still good health now, my age, is because when I was 18 years old, I went to work for New Jersey Bell Telephone Company at that time. I never went to college, never had a good education. I just about barely graduated from high school.
School wasn't your thing?
No, school was not my thing.
Okay.
And when I did finally get a permanent job, it was with the telephone company. At that time, 1953, it was New Jersey Bell Telephone. AT&T was all over the country, but where I applied for a job was New Jersey Bell Telephone Company at that time. And they gave me a job which was called a splicer's helper.
Splicer's helper.
A splicer's helper.
Okay.
A splicer was a guy, he didn't put telephone poles in, and he didn't put telephone cables on poles. A splicer was a guy that maybe would take 2 ends of a cable that had thousands and thousands of wires inside and splice them up together and maintain them. And the result of that was most of the work was on top of telephone poles and or ran in manholes through ducts. And at that time, of course, there was no such thing as these bucket trucks and cherry pickers or whatever you call them. Everything was done on hooks. If you had to work up on a pole on a cable, you put a pair of hooks on and went up and stood around for
Climbed up on that?
2 or 3 hours on a pair of hooks until your feet went dead. And if it was a manhole job, you'd be down in a manhole doing the same thing. But at that time, all cables with all the wires inside, the outer coating was lead, just lead. There was no plastic at the time or anything. But the work was very hard because you had to bend certain lead cables in certain directions to make them fit, especially in manholes. If it came in a top duct, you would have to make sure it came down to the top. But if they came in from a bottom duct, you would have to bend all these lead cables and so get them so they lined up in a row, nice and straight. So I attribute most of it because it was very, very hard work. I will say that, but enjoyable work. I enjoyed every minute of it, but it was hard work. And working on telephone poles was very hard to do.
But you stayed with that company for 44 years. Which,
I stayed for them for, I was in my, I completed 42 years of that. I was in my 43rd year when I retired. But those 42 years I worked there was very active physical work. And that's what I contributed to keeping myself in shape. And of course, later on, I worked out a little bit. I never went to a gym too much. Once in a while, with my son Walt, we'd go to the gym, but most of it was just working out and everything.
what do you do now? I mean, you look great. You're sharp. Your mind,
luckily
your
my mind,
amazing.
I remember everything. I don't forget
Yeah.
anything. I'm able to carry a pretty good conversation with people. I can remember everything. I don't forget. The only problem I forget once in a while is people's names. If I meet somebody I haven't seen in a while.
Well, we all do that.
Yeah,
but
I
right?
forget their name. What's your name? I'll say, what's your name again?
Yeah, yeah.
So,
But there's no one thing you pointed to? Is that
I think
clean living, maybe?
clean
Good diet?
living. Yeah. Well, I was lucky because I got married when I was 18 to my wife, Jean.
Okay.
And my wife, Jean, was a hard worker and a very extremely good wife. I had a good life.
Where'd you meet Gene?
Well, that's kind of a long story. I have a brother, George, the one that passed away recently. He was dating a girl, Rumson, here. And she had a sister named Jean. And I see her once in a while. My brother, George, would be going with his girlfriend, Mary Frischer. And I would see Jean Frischer. Mary Frischer was a little older, like my brother was.
Okay.
Maybe 5 years older than us. But Jean was kind of an attractive Italian gal, and she caught my eye.
I can see the twinkle.
So somehow, I'm not exactly sure, but we ended up together and started dating. And eventually, my brother George married Mary, and about 5 years later, I married Jean.
So 2 brothers married 2 sisters?
2 brothers married 2 sisters. And the ironic part of that is my father, George Cuje, had a brother, Jack, and they married 2 sisters.
Wow.
Which is kind of coincidence.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So you and Gene were married for 58 years.
58 years, got married here in Rumson. We lived just about all of our life in Rumson. And we had 2 children, Walter Jr. and a daughter, Leanne.
Okay.
I'm sorry, not Leanne, was the third one. Walter and Lou Jean. And they said, well, Lou Jean, that's a funny name. Well, my mother-in-law's name was Louise, but I wanted to call her Jean, so we compromised and used my mother-in-law's Lou Jean.
Lou Jean.
Lou Jean.
Okay.
So that's how she got her name.
And then you had a third.
And then 11 years went by.
11 years?
11 years went by in our life, Jean and myself. And it was, oh, you had an accident, you had another child. But my wife was getting a little older, and she wanted to have one more child to go old with. It was no accident. So anyway, after 11 years, we did have the third child, and that was a girl, and her name is Leanne. The Leanne is Walter Lee, and my wife's favorite friend was Ann.
Okay.
So we put Leanne together. But it was really kind of a good thing in a way, because by now my son and my daughter were like 11 years old, so we had a lot of help raising the
You had a
third
built-in babysitter.
babysitter.
Right?
Yeah, they helped a lot, so
Yeah.
that worked out real good. Yes.
So, Walt, tell me what's, and again, I have a lot of things that I want to ask you we're going to cover, and we're going to just let you talk, and we're going to talk about these things. What's the secret? What was your secret to a 58-year marriage? That's a long time when you look at the divorce rate nowadays, and I want to talk to you about today versus when you were growing up. What was the secret to your 58 years with Jean?
We always got along. I mean, we had a few disagreements through the
everybody has
years,
it,
like
right,
any
right.
married couple would
Yeah.
have. I mean, we never had abusive marriage or anything. We always
Yeah.
had a great marriage. And my wife, when I met her, worked for a New Jersey gas company as some kind of a clerk. But later on, she went to school to become a beautician. And she became a beautician and worked at various beauty shops around locally. And she did very well as a beautician. And then she was a really good artist. She could draw and fancy lettering and all that. And she did a lot of work for EBSCO Industries, making these symbols of what division you were in the Army or the this was before computers, and she would draw these what they called overlays, different colors, and then when you put them on top of each other, it came out to be a regular symbol of a uniform. And she did between that and the beautician and me working, and I was a hungry guy when I was young. I would make $1 any way I could. If I wasn't working in a phone company, I was cutting grass somewhere or painting the house. So we both worked very hard. We had great kids. We were very good kids. We never had a problem with anything on our whole life. And then sadly, when we were married about 25, 30 years, my wife developed a blood disease, which was kept under control until the very end when it really got bad. And she had the last year of her life was not pleasant for her.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And she passed away in 2013, I believe,
Right. But we did have a good life. I mean, we always had a good car. We always had a house over ourselves. My first two kids and my third kid were all good kids, and I never really got into big trouble or anything. My son once in a while, I have to bail him out from jail down in Manasquan once in a while. He was running around with a bad friend of his. The friend was born in that area, so he always got away, but my son would say, "You gotta come down and get your son."
He's a good guy now.
But he's a good guy. Yeah. Turned out successful. All my kids did very well in life, I will say that, yes.
You guys had big parties.
Yep,
It sounds like you and Jean had similar hardworking.
yep, very hardworking. And my wife was a very religious person.
Okay, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your faith. What role has your faith played in your life? Because I want to talk. You were then remarried. You got married again, but I want to talk about your faith for just a second.
Well, of course, Jean was, and I both went to Holy Cross Church down here in Rumson.
Okay.
And my wife was very involved in the church. She was a Eucharistic minister and a reader. And I didn't get involved in that, but I was always an usher from the day I was 18 years old. I was an usher at Holy Cross Church. And that started when I was 18 years old. I was on a couple of more committees down there at different times.
Sure.
But the years went by, most of my participation was going to church regularly, believing in God. And my wife was the same attitude. She was a very religious person, and
Would you say that helped shape your life and who you are and those?
yeah, because we were both
values
very
that you-
religious. But the one thing I think that saved our
Please.
marriage so good through the years, we always respected each other.
Respect. Okay.
Respect. You may get a little dispute or something, but we never had like cussing in my house. There was no such thing as cussing or being out loud, abusive or anything like that. We were a close-knit family.
Okay.
If we had a problem, we talked it over, and everything worked out
Everybody
fine
had
that
dinner
way.
together. The family went to church. You
yeah.
were respectful. So
Yep.
respect.
My kids all went to church with us all every
Yeah.
Sunday. Yeah. So
Yeah.
religion played a very important life in my first marriage. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it did.
Yeah.
My son went to my son and my first daughter went all through grammar school in St. Leo's Catholic School in Lincoln, New Jersey.
Okay. So your faith is Catholic, raised right?
Basic
Okay.
Catholic. And my son went from grammar school to CBA, which is an all-boys high school in Lincoln. And my daughter, after she graduated from St. Leo's, she went to Red Bank Catholic High School. So we've been involved with religion all of our life. Yeah. And then, well, getting back to that, the young daughter I had, by then, I think I was broke, maybe. She went all through public school,
Okay.
public grammar school, public high school, and graduated. Then she went to Rutgers College. But she became very, very religious in her late life after she moved to North Carolina. She actually runs a Catholic grammar school in North Carolina.
Wow.
So ultra-religious person. And she
So
went
that
to-
influence that you and Jean instilled really carried on and has played out in your daughter's life. as she's
Yes,
running
yes,
a
it
Catholic
did.
school.
Before she went to Carolina, she got a job after she graduated from college. She actually, rather than go to public school, she started teaching in the Catholic school system in Perth Amboy. And she taught there for about 15 years. When she and her husband decided they wanted to get out of that area because of they had 2 kids.
Okay.
And it was kind of bad environment up around Saraville, Perth Amboy. So that's when they decided to make the big move to North Carolina, which was a pretty smart move because they've been down there about 15 years, and in the course of that time, they built this big mansion house. They own about 40 acres, and what burns me up is I pay more in a quarter than they do in a year down there in property tax.
The property taxes, yeah, being in New Jersey.
Yeah, so
yeah.
that was a smart move on our part.
So born in 1935, so you were born really at the end, the country was coming out of the Depression,
The Depression,
right?
yes.
But that probably instilled a lot in you, in your values and Jean's values and
Because I
the
know
closeness of the family. What was the impact? So Roosevelt was the president, and you've seen lots of presidents. I want to ask you who your favorite president was and what some of your thoughts about what's going on here. But did that really help to mold you coming out of the Depression? And what was going on at that period? How far back can you remember what was going on?
Well, I would say yes, it had an effect on me, the Depression, because of my father being a truck driver and take care of he was never educated, a high education.
Okay.
And the fact that he was a truck driver and with all the children that he had, we were not ever like a lot of money, a lot of income. We were a poor family, we'll say. And there was no such thing as an allowance. My father never had extra money to give you $1 or 50 cents, so you had to make your own money if you wanted money. And that's how I started with the pin setting. When I was about 15 years old, there was a local bowling alley in Red Bank. And I went over there, you can need a pin.
And how old were you when this was going on, Walt?
15.
15, okay. Was this your
So-
first real job, the bowling pins?
Yes.
Okay,
That's my first earning where I made money.
okay.
But anyway, I did that for 15, 16, 17, at least 3 years.
Wow.
And I was very, because of the fact that we were poor, I was always like money hungry, I'll say. Anywhere I could make $1, like with the bowling alley where I worked, I would do the early league, I would do the late league. As soon as I got out of high school, I'd be right over to the bowling alley. When I got out of class, I would go right to the bowling alley, and I'd be there all evening. So I was not the smartest kid in school because I didn't apply myself the way I should have.
Well, you were focused on making money. Now,
I
was that
focused
making
on
money? Were you
making money,
helping out
never
the family?
dreaming of
Yeah.
what kind of education I had.
Okay.
You know, it just didn't rate a good education, you earn more. That never entered the picture when I was a kid.
Right.
So I did set the pins. That was the old days. We didn't have machines. You would have to
You stepped on a pedal, didn't you?
stepped on a pedal to get the little
things would
pins to come up, and then it was a regular system.
Right.
You had to put them in a row.
You had to put them in there.
And of course, every inning they had two balls to throw.
You had to throw them down.
When
Yep.
the first ball came down, according to how the pins that were left standing, if they were hit, they would fly like a missile.
And you had to,
And you had to hide the way they were arranged. You learned which way they were going to fly, and you would be dodging. But you always
the
said,
same job, I remember it.
but you always said 2 rallies, so you'd be setting up here, then you have to jump over the railing, sit over here, and between dodging pins over here, you'd be dodging pins over there. Rolling the ball back, you had to pick up the ball first and roll that back before you start setting the pins.
Yeah.
So that kept me in good shape all those years. And then finally, I got a job in a department store in Red Bank called Kisslin's.
Kissling's.
Kisslin's department
Okay,
store.
Kisslers, all right.
When I was about 17, I started working there after schools. And Kisling had a wife, Mrs. Kisling. And I had just got my license, so she she didn't drive, so I became like her chauffeur. Besides working in the department store, I would drive her all over the place. And then as I approached my 17th birthday, a senior in high school, I had to decide what was I going to do with myself. So I put an application in with New Jersey Bell Telephone Company, and I put an application in with the government. Fort Monmouth was very active here at that time. And the ironic part was, I got in the same day in the mail, I got a okay for the phone company and an okay for Fort Monmouth. But the job at Fort Monmouth was inside, and the job at, of course, in the telephone company was outside. And I said, I don't think I ought to work inside. So I went with the phone company, and I started there when I was 18 years old. We did discuss that a little bit, but
Yeah.
I started 18, and I worked there until I was 60, and left there. And luckily, I took at that time, they had pensions, but you had the option of taking a buyout. And I was thinking to myself, because I was young then, and I was thinking, you know, if you take the pension, a lot of these companies at that time would sell them to insurance companies, and I was afraid, you know, you guaranteed a monthly paycheck forever, but it would not really keep up with inflation. So I decided to take the buyout. And with the buyout, I kept all my medical benefits.
Okay.
That was part of the deal. So luckily, my son Walt was involved in Wall Street, and he took the buyout when you could make money on your money. That's when they were paying 8% on
Exactly.
things.
Yeah.
So my son, I think he's a brain. He invested all of my money that I took for the buyout and invested it. But I was 60, so I had to figure out how am I going to live until I'm 65 or so. When you had to take money out of your investments at 72,
Yeah.
he had created, when I got near that age, of IRA. In the meantime, I did have some savings, and that's when I got started working for funeral homes around town. I had a friend, Bruce Thompson, who has a funeral home in Red Bank also.
Okay.
But he didn't have his own funeral home at that time, but I knew him well. He was a director at John D. Day Funeral Home in Red Bank. And after I retired, he knew me. He said, he called me up one day. He said, what are you doing? I said, just hanging around, looking for something to do. He said, well, come on over to the funeral home and give you some part-time work. So I said, I'll give that a try. So over to the funeral home, and I became an associate over there. I had nothing to do with the bodies or anything. I would just carry flowers in, arrange them, and that kind of stuff. And I always drove the hearse. I was the hearse driver, and it turned out to be a pretty good job. The pay was good, and then your name got out there that you were working in funeral homes, and then this funeral home would call you, and that funeral home would call you. And I ended up working for about 5 or 6, 7 funeral homes all at the same time. Whoever called first, I would say, oh yeah, I could do that job. But and somebody else would call you, but you would always stick with your first commitment. So between my savings and working in all these different funeral homes, like a funeral morning, visitation in the afternoon, a visitation at nighttime.
Yeah.
Like I said, I was kind of a hungry guy for money.
You said that a couple times now, Walt.
Yeah. And even though I was working in the funeral homes, living on savings, I was doing other jobs. Like my brother had a big landscaping business. I would help him cutting grass.
Okay.
And I had another brother who was a painter, and we'd be painting houses or some other things. So
always doing
it
something.
seemed I was always working, always working,
Yeah.
always working. I never got involved in any hobbies, and that's my problem today. I don't have a hobby.
Not
I
a
never got
golfer?
involved in golf. I never got involved in fishing. Just working all my whole life, just about, I would say. But it was all fun. It was always had a great time. I mean, it was, even though I'm working, I enjoyed working and keeping in shape and everything. It was
Yeah.
fun for me.
So no regrets. Life's
regrets
been good.
whatsoever. If I could live my life all over, I don't think I would change not one thing, nothing.
Wow.
So,
That's amazing, Walt.
yeah. And all the years I worked in a telephone company, to me, wasn't work. It was a fun job. I was all over, everywhere. This town today, that town tomorrow, another town over here, back alleys, apartment houses. I could write a book about it, kept a diary. You wouldn't believe how many people you meet out there, just general population, the housing projects. Oh my God!
But Walt, I'm just curious. Like, where does this come from? Was there a role model in your life? Was it your dad? Was it a brother? Was it a friend? You've got such a positive attitude. Where did that come from? You think?
I think most of it came from my father because he was like a truck driver. With all the children that he had a.
And he was on the road a lot, right?
Well, no, he was a local truck driver.
Truck driver.
Yeah, local.
Okay.
He was home, but after he got done working, he would work for another outfit where we would take produce up to Hunt's Market at night, and then he had another job on the weekends where there was a garage in Red Bank where they used to put telephone company trucks and UPS trucks, and his job was to wash and polish them on the weekends. So he was sort of like myself. He was always working.
Okay.
And the same thing, my father, he never really developed any kind of outside interest or anything. So
Good sense of humor too.
oh, he had a great sense of humor. My father was, they always called him the dirty old man.
The dirty old man.
Because with all these sons that had wives, and he would do things that he shouldn't do.
You shouldn't do. It sounds like to me that your dad was your hero.
Oh, he was a good guy. Yeah. I give him a lot of credit. Yes, I do. He was a hard worker. When my father died, he was probably in his mid-70s, and he looked like Arnold Schwarzenegger. I mean, just nothing but muscles. He was just a muscle man. It was unbelievable.
Did he go to the gym? Did he work out?
No. He worked out
didn't have
just
any time.
working.
He moved furniture.
To work out was moving furniture. Of course, in them days I can remember, because once in a while he would take on a job or something
Yeah.
They didn't hand trucks. If they were moving a refrigerator, they'd put a rope around under the back of it, put it on your back and start carrying it up the steps. He worked hard. He never made a lot of money in his life, but worked hard. But he enjoyed life, and he was a comical guy. He loved his beer. I think everybody in my family loved beer. And when I worked in the bowling alley, that's how I got started. Because it'd be older men setting pins, and in between leagues, it was, well, we're going to go get a six-pack of beer. I said, oh, can you get me one?
And you were, wait a minute, 15, 16, 17.
Yeah.
Okay.
And a few nights I rode a bicycle to the bowling alley. A couple of nights there, I'd be driving home on a bicycle and I'd be tipsy. So that's how my beer drinking started. But I never drank anything my whole life except beer. Never had a mixed drink in my life. Never.
Smoker?
No, I never smoked.
Never smoked.
No. So
Okay.
I attribute that to the fact that smoking does a lot of damage.
Yeah.
To it, but I never
Yeah.
smoked. Though.
Yeah.
Well, I had a good life, enjoyable life. I had a good family. I had a good wife. I had 3 beautiful, faithful children that loved me outstandingly. So, I mean, what more could you have? You always had the necessities of life.
Do you feel blessed, Walt?
Oh, I'm very blessed, very blessed. I bought my first house in 1959 when I was like 25 years old, and I paid $13,500 for a new house. And I remember my wife and I walking out of the closing, and I'm saying to myself, how am I ever going to make these payments? $13,500. How am I going to ever make these payments?
Do you remember what the payment was? I mean, you bought the house for $13,500. What could the payment have been?
At that time, I was only
$50?
making like $1 an hour in
Yeah,
the phone
wow.
company. When I started in the phone company, you didn't even make $1 an hour. It was like 90 cents a day, you know,
Yeah.
an hour rather.
Yeah.
So that's why all the odd jobs had to keep up with the odd jobs to make the payments, you know. So.
Yeah.
But I had a great life. I really had a great life. And then, like I said, my wife came down with the blood disease, and when she passed away, Of course, my 3 kids were all grown up at either house by then. So I had a house here in Rumson. I had a big house at one time on Bingham Avenue. When the kids more or less left, except the young daughter, I bought a small ranch house over on the Avenue of Two Rivers.
Okay.
And then when she got out, I was living there, after my wife died, I was living there by myself. And that's how my second life started. If you want to get into that, I'll tell you.
Tell me about it. So you remarried
Well, what
in
happened was
2015, I think,
I was
right?
living by myself,
Okay.
trying to cook for myself and all that, but still working at the funeral homes and all that. And this one day I was working, and we were taking a funeral out to what they call Nativity Church in Fairhaven. And while I was coming into church, I saw a gal over here that I remember. I was very active in the Red Bank Elks Club, an officer, trustee, head of trustees, very involved there. And this gal, I remember, she used to come into the Elks a lot with her husband. And I remember it. But at that time, when I'm period of time I'm talking about, her husband already passed away.
Okay.
So I come in at Nativity Church, and I see that gal over there, and she's on what they call the Lazarus Committee with Nativity Church. And they're the ones with the meets with the family, they pick out the readings and the songs they want to do and all that sort of thing. So I come in with a funeral on the pall. I drive the hearse. I direct the pallbearers and all that sort of thing. And we get the pall, the hearse, the body out of the hearse down to the altar. And then we disappear while the mass is going on. So I went over and talked to this gal. I knew her first name, but I didn't know her last name. Hey, Patty. She said, well, she remembered my name. I was surprised. How's it going? She says to me, it's a lonely life. You know, she knew Jean. That's another story in itself, but she knew my wife from the Elks because my wife used to run a lot of these money-making things up there, Chinese auctions and
Charities.
different charities. So she knew my wife. And then she said, hey, you make it out with such Jean? I said, oh, man, it's a lonely life now. So we got talking. I said, would you like to go to lunch one day? She said, oh, yeah, I think I would, yeah. So she gave me her telephone number, and I didn't want to call right away, so I waited a while and called her, and we made arrangements to go to lunch. And we went to, Turning Point was a little deli in Little Silver. We went there. And that's how that started. We started seeing each other frequently, and after a while we decided, after a couple of years, we decided maybe we should get married, you know. I said, no, I'm not married again. So we talked and we talked and we talked. Finally, she had a house in Fairhaven that she owned outright. She'd been living there about 45 years in the same house. And I still had my house in Rumson. And sometimes we would be at her house in Fairhaven, and sometimes we'd be at my house in Rumson, and people would say, well, where do you guys live nowadays? And I would say, well, it depends on where we are at 10 o'clock at night. So anyway, we decided to get married, which we did. We still had 2 houses. And I told my son, Walt, hey, Walt, I'm thinking about getting married again. He said, getting married again? That's like breaking into prison. So anyway, we did get married. And for about 2 years, we decided, we still had 2 houses. We were married 2 years. And we decided, shall we sell your house, we'll sell my house, buy a new house on our own, or sell one, or do this, or do that. But what the deciding factor was, my daughter, Lou Jean, her husband used to sometimes buy houses and fix them up, and you'd flip them. but they had at that time a house in Red Bank, New Jersey, an old house, 100-year-old house, which he renovated, made it look brand new. And they were selling it, and they didn't think it would sell very fast, but the first person that came into the house bought the house. So now they had to get out of that house. So she said, Dad, what are you going to do with your house? I said, well, I guess sell it. Would you sell it to us? Well, if I sell it to you, I could move in with Patty. She'd be happy because she's been in the house 47 years. She didn't want to move no which way. So, okay, if it's all right with Patty, I'll move in with her if you want to buy my house. So she said, yeah, we'll buy it. So I did sell it to her, but the problem with selling to a relative, you got to give them a big discount, you know.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
So anyway, she bought that house. I moved into Patty's house, and then turned out to be one of them deals like when your kid moves out, you say, when are you going to get all this stuff out of here, you know? And so this is the opposite. When's Dad going to get his stuff out of here? But I had for years and years a classic Mercedes, a 450 SL.
Yeah.
So
The convertible?
Yes, convertible with the hardtop. You
hardtop,
lift
sure.
off and put it on. I had that for a lot of years.
You don't have it anymore?
Well, it was the story. When I sold my house to my daughter, I said, listen, I'm going to give it a discount, but I had built a 2-car garage in the
Okay.
back. Part of the deal is I keep one half of the garage for my Mercedes.
Yeah.
That's part of the deal. I come and go as I want to use it. Okay, they were happy with that. And her husband, such a nice guy, he's unreal. I always call him son number 2. And so just recently, I kind of lost interest because I'm getting older, I guess, in the cars. So I gave it to my son number 2, my son-in-law. So he has that car now.
Okay.
So getting back to Patty, which I moved in with her, but unbeknownst to me, I didn't realize that she had a son and 2 daughters. I have a son and 2 daughters. Her son used to work for my brother with the landscaping business, which I also did. And my one daughter was in a high school band with one of hers, and she was always over to Patty's house, but I didn't know that.
Wow.
So it turns out like my kids kind of knew her kids,
Sure.
and it turned out to be one just big,
One big happy family.
Luckily, nobody was upset. Her kids never got upset because we got married. Walt,
Patty takes good care of you.
pardon me?
Patty takes good care of you.
Yeah, oh yeah, my wife's second wife, she's as good as my first wife. So I'm a lucky
have
guy.
really-
2 wives
Well,
and
you're
2
a
great
lucky
wives.
guy.
How lucky can you be? You
Yeah,
know?
you're a lucky
Oh
guy.
my God, she worries about me something terrible.
Yeah.
And and in addition to that, she's a cook. She loves to cook. The only thing that annoys me, she watches all these cooking shows during the day. I can't stand cooking. So she treats me good. So here I am, a great, wonderful life.
So I want to ask you some of your favorite things, and I want to make sure they get all this in before we run out of time. But, 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now, your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren are going to be watching this. And so I'd like to know, for those who are going to be watching this, and we're coming up on the holidays, we're here at the Salt Creek Grille in Rumson. Beautiful place. It's meant a lot to your family, I know. What advice would you give people who are watching all this, Walt? I mean, we talked about respect that you, with Jean and
Yeah.
with Patty.
Yes,
What
indeed.
advice would you give young people today, whether they're married or not, or maybe struggling? What advice would you offer to people watching this?
Well, I would say for young people, today's world, the way the world is today is a lot different than it was in 1954.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
And this particular area where we live right now, this Monmouth County, young people are not going to be able to buy a house unless they got 2 professionals making big bucks,
Yeah.
or the family has big bucks.
Yeah.
So the advice I could give them is try to get a good education, which I never really did. Try to get a good education because the old saying, the more you learn, the more you earn, is a very true saying. And if you get involved with another person, doesn't matter if it's a woman or whatever, always respect each other. Don't ever abuse each other. Don't ever cuss at each other. Have a happy life, and if it's not a happy life, make it a happy life.
Yeah.
But I think the main thing is with individuals, the main thing is you have to respect each other.
Did you get that from your parents? It sounds like.
Oh yeah, my father and mother, they get
Your father and
along.
mother.
Yeah, yeah. My mother never worked. My father worked his whole life, always working someplace, somehow. And my mother was the backbone of the household,
Yeah.
raising the kids and all. And they got along good. They had a good life. Even though, like I say, they never had a good education, neither did I, but everything worked out fine. I would pay to have my life over again the way it was. Yeah.
Wow.
It was a great
Do you think
life.
it's possible, Walt, to have that kind of a life today? The world's very complicated. You talked
Very
about
complicated.
it. Things are very expensive. And people say, well, it's really the same as it was back in the, it's all relative. Do you think it's all relative, or is life today more difficult, more complicated, more challenges?
Well, I would say life today is more challenging because, like I said, I worked 40-some years at one job, and that's almost impossible to do in today's world.
Correct.
You can't get a job and be guaranteed to be there for 40 years.
Right.
You're lucky if you have 4 years before it closes or sells or some other thing.
Yeah.
So a 401 investment, if you work for a company for 401 investments where you put money in and they put money in, put as much as you can in. Sacrifice going out to dinner or whatever, but save your money when you're young. Because when you get older, that income doesn't continue on. And that's when you need what you saved in your young working years.
Yeah. Well, people are living longer, right?
Oh
The
yeah,
advances
sure.
in
Myself, I
medicine
mean, I
and
don't
stuff.
kid myself. I'm lucky every day I wake up. I have this crucifix in the bedroom that my father-in-law made, and every morning when I wake up, I look over and say, "Thank you,
do.
God, for another day."
Yeah, that gratitude, that sense of gratitude.
Yeah, because I'm not kidding myself. I'm, 87. Most people, working in a funeral home, most people die in the late 70s or early 80s.
Okay.
I see it all the time.
Yeah.
But of course, it could be young, or it could be older.
Yeah.
Exceptions to the rule, but late 70s, early 80s, that's the time frame for.
Did you think that you'd be looking at your 87th birthday coming up on May the 8th? Did you really think we'd be sitting here having this
No, I
conversation?
never
Walt?
dreamed to be 86 years old now. Never, never. I shouldn't be alive, really. Deep down inside, I'm not getting into different things, but all my life I drank beer, not to the point where I ever got drunk or stupid
Yeah,
or
yeah.
imbecile, but I had my 3 or 4 beers a day every day. And
Really?
yeah, oh yeah.
Okay.
And I still do, and my son and I, we go out to dinner every Thursday night. My son Walt and I, we go to dinner someplace,
Okay.
here a lot, all Monmouth County restaurants and all. He doesn't drink, but I still have my beer. So, like I said, the best advice I can give young people today is always respect each other and save and save and save as much as you can while you're able to work. That's the main thing.
Yeah. Let's talk about some of your favorite things. And I'm assuming your family knows this, but maybe not. And like I said, people are going to be, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren are going to be seeing this. This is going to live on. What's your favorite food?
My favorite what?
Food?
Food?
Yeah.
Pasta.
Pasta.
Yeah, any kind of pasta. Lasagna, pasta.
Lasagna? Okay.
Ziti.
Okay.
Any kind of pasta. I love pasta.
Yeah.
I hate green veggies.
You hate green veggies? You're not good with your veggies?
I don't do
You like your
Brussels
beer.
sprouts or asparagus.
Okay. And never have?
No, I don't eat them. I eat string beans, spinach. I am strictly a potatoes and meat man.
Meat and potatoes
Give
guy.
me a baked potato and a piece of meat, and I'm happy as can be.
How about dessert? You have a favorite dessert?
My wife makes a lot of this creme brulee, I think.
Creme brulee?
Yeah, that's
Okay,
that's one
okay.
of my favorite desserts.
Yep.
And she makes that quite a bit for me because she knows I like it. In fact, I had it last night for dessert.
You have a favorite color?
My favorite color is blue.
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 Is there a
Everything-
story around that?
Everything I have is blue.
Okay.
Blue. I wear khakis. I never wear jeans. I don't wear jeans because I'm not comfortable in jeans.
Okay.
I don't feel like.
Well, you're very dapper, so you're.
Yeah, I don't feel dressed up in jeans. I have a pair of jeans, but I never wear them. I only have one pair, but I never wear them.
Appearance matters to you.
Yes. I've always been, I would say I've always been sharp looking. Even when I went to work, I've always had shiny boots. Everybody used to laugh at me because I had boots were shiny. Even today, my shoes were always shiny.
Yeah. Yeah.
I kind of only buy kind of expensive clothing. That's my big treat to myself. Good clothing, good coats,
So you,
or a leather
you
jacket.
take care of yourself.
Oh yes. Yep.
And you've probably always been that way. You strike me as the kind of guy I see you're very well put together, you're very sharp,
Yep.
you're very attractive, very sociable,
Well, thank you. Yeah.
and that's always been your way.
Always been my
I'm
way.
thinking,
Always
yeah.
been sociable. I can carry conversation mostly with anybody, from the elite to the workers,
Yeah.
and I have no problem talking to people. I still remember everything, which I'm very thankful for. I'm
Yeah.
not starting to go off the deep end or anything like that yet. So I'm a lucky guy, very lucky guy. I had a great life, but I had such a great life that I wish I could live it over again.
Wow. Well,
Great family, great wives, great jobs, great houses, always had a car, nice car.
travel, is there a favorite destination?
Travel.
You've
I never-
traveled?
I never really traveled much with my first wife,
Okay.
but my second wife is a traveler. We've been to Europe, we've been all over the Europe area, Czechoslovakia, Hungary. But we did have a trip lined up to go to Belgium to see the roses in the spring, and that's when the virus hit. We didn't go.
Okay.
We did go on a river cruise once down the Danube River, but I never traveled before I met my second wife. We never traveled much. I mean, we would do tours in the United States, driving tours, but no big outings. Just didn't have the time for it or what. But my second wife, oh my God, she loved to travel. She's been all over the place before she met me.
So no regrets.
No regrets on anything, nothing.
Anything you still want to do?
I kind of regret somewhere I never developed any kind of hobbies, like, not ever getting involved in golf. I did play golf a couple of times, but always in the back of my mind, I said, what am I doing here? I should be working somewhere or doing something productive, So I never did create any kind of hobbies for
Yeah.
myself, but that didn't interfere with my life at all.
There's still time.
Pardon me?
There's still time.
Oh yeah, there's still
Right, to
time,
develop
I
those
hope.
hobbies.
No hobbies, but I go out quite a bit with my children. I spend a lot of time with my children. I do go down to North Carolina to see. When my youngest daughter moved to North Carolina, she had 2 children, or about 10, 8, 10, something like that. And then they moved away. And I missed watching them grow up. And now my granddaughters, they have children. And now I'm missing out on watching them grow up.
Yeah.
So I do go down there quite a bit to see them. And they all call me Pop Pop. And all the grandkids call me Pop Pop. So, very lucky. I am a lucky man, that's all I can tell you. I never dreamed I'd see this kind of age in my life, 86, nobody lives to be 86, And I feel good, so I think I still might have a couple years left in me. So. But I don't kid myself.
I bet you do.
Yeah, I don't kid myself.
Favorite memories, adult or childhood? Anything that really sticks out?
Nah, my childhood was not that exciting.
Your childhood was not that exciting.
Well, we had, at that time, of course, there was no crime or anything. We never had keys for the house, so I would just say, going out I'll be back somewhere. And
Yeah.
I'd go down to the river and run back. And when I was a kid, I used to swim all the way across the river, this river,
Wow.
and sat around on the other side, me and a couple of kids of my age, and sat around a while. Then we swim back again. And there was a big lake, shallow lake in Middletown, way over. And we used to go there swimming all the time. A lot of swimming I did in my young age. I was a good swimmer.
It's great exercise.
Yeah, I had a pool at my house in Rumson. Patty has a big pool at her house, so we still have a pool. We spend a lot of time in that in the summertime. Of course, they're heated because when the temperature, like my father said, you could tell when it's cold outside when the temperature drops below your age.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
And cold water in a pool is not for me.
Right.
So Patty didn't have a heater on her pool when they moved in with her. I said, well, I'll tell you what, first summer that I'm living here, we're getting a heater on that pool,
Yeah.
which we did.
Walt, is there anything that you can share with us that might surprise you, that if people heard about you? So think about people who are going to be seeing this. Are there any surprises, like something
Well,
about you that might surprise folks?
Like I said, I lived in Rumson most of my adult life, and I was surprised because I knew most all the councilmen and the mayors down here for years. They always encouraged me to run for the council in Rumson. But I got the same kind of surprise now that I'm living in Fairhaven for the last 5-6 years. I get people that want me to run for councilman in Fairhaven.
People want you to run for political office now?
So maybe in my late life, that might be the outcome of my life. My wife's daughter, her husband is the chief of police in Fairhaven.
Okay.
He's always encouraged me to run for him and a couple of other people down there. Keep pestering me, run for council, run for council.
Would you do it?
At this point in my life, I may, yeah. Because I'm working for the funeral home, and the best part of a part-time job at the funeral home, like today, they called me yesterday to work today. No, I can't work today. I could work tomorrow, but I can't work today. And that's the best part of this job that I have with the funeral homes. There's maybe 5 of us at the funeral home. If I can't work, one of these other guys will work. And that's the best part of it. I'll say, I'll go on vacation, I'll be away a week, okay? Call as soon as you get back. And that's the best part of my part-time work at the funeral home. So my saving grace in my later life is like 401k. Thank you, my son.
Thank you, Walt Jr.
Thank you, Walt Jr., for building it up for till 60 to 71 and a half. I didn't touch it.
Wow.
At that time, like I said, I was making 8 or 9% money.
Yeah.
And now, every year with the minimum distribution, I've taken out more money. I have to take out more money than I need.
Yeah.
But you have to take it.
Yeah.
So I'm lucky that way.
I want to get 2 more things on before we wrap up because we are running out of time. I want to know what your definition of success is, and then I've got one last question I want to ask you. How do you define success? As you look at your life, what does success mean for you? For some folks, it's a lot of money. It's a fancy car. It's a big house. What does success mean to you, Walt, as you look back on your almost 87 years?
I think what I would call my greatest success in life is, and it should be with everybody, is your relationship with your immediate family. Because your most immediate family is your best asset in the world. How you and your wife, you and your kids get along. As long as you're one big happy group, to me that's success, which is exactly what I do have right now. I have 3 kids that admire me. I have grandchildren that admire me. I have great-grandchildren that admire me. And I would say, in my view, that's the greatest success you could have, is great immediate family. Yes.
That's beautiful.
Not money. I mean, money helps the cause.
Yeah.
And it's nice to be successful and get rich. But that doesn't make you happy unless you have a great home life, a great family life. That's your biggest asset in life, is your family. Yep, that's success.
And then finally, what I want to know is, as again, we look forward and folks are watching this years from now, which they of course will, how do you want to be remembered? If I'm running into somebody on the street who knew Walter Cuje, Walter Lee, right? Wally Lee, I think you
Wally
said.
Lee.
What would you want them to say about you, Walt, that would make you most proud? If somebody was talking to Walt Jr. or one of your daughters or your great-grandchildren or whatever, and they said something about their father, their grandfather, their great-grandfather, what would that be? How do you want to be remembered?
I would say I'd want to be remembered as a good guy. Not so much a successful guy, but a good guy. You know, he never carried a grudge, which I never do. I don't carry a grudge for anybody. I've had bad feelings with a few people, but I don't carry a grudge. I would like people to say, well, oh yeah, he was a great guy. I like that guy. He was one of the better guys.
Yeah. So people matter to you, Walt, is the sense I'm getting, right? Your family,
Oh,
your
yeah.
friends,
Yeah.
people matter to
Yeah.
you.
The only trouble is most of my friends have passed away or moved away.
Yeah.
That's
And that's challenging, right?
That's,
You've reached the
that's
point
one
in
of
your
the
life.
hardships of
Of
getting
getting older.
older, as a lot of your relatives passed away. Like I said, I'm the last of mine,
Yeah.
and all my friends had passed away or moved away.
Yeah.
Most of them passed away. All the guys I met when I was working in New Jersey Bell, that you saw every day of your life, I worked with and communicated with, they're all just about gone now. And in fact, just recently I lost my best friend, Howie Stevens. And he worked together with me for 40 years, different jobs and all in the phone company. And
Yeah.
Bob Rugg, another guy who worked together for 40-some years, and they're gone.
Yeah.
That's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
But you're
that's-
surrounded by a loving family.
Oh,
and-
I'm mighty lucky. I'm a lucky guy because my family is, and we're all very, very tight. Nobody's arguing with anybody. This one, nor arguing with that one. And,
yeah.
and like I said, between Patty's 3 kids and my 3 kids, we're just one big happy family. Everybody treats me like I'm their father. And same thing with Walt, you know. So that, to me, is a successful life.
Yeah.
So,
Well, you've been incredibly blessed, and you inspire me, and I know for everybody who's watching this for years and years to come are going to appreciate you sharing this time with us.
well, like you say, if somebody down the road 10 years, 20 years from now is watching this, I would like to say, I hope you're all happily part of a good family, just like I have been all my life. Take care of your family, folks. Amen.
So that's a life philosophy right there. We can end. That's a perfect note to end on, right?
Yeah. Yep, very good.
Yep.
Very interesting talk.
Well, thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for
Thank you for-
allowing me to help you and Walt to
Thank you.
capture this on film for your family for generations. And we want to thank certainly the Salt Creek Grille for hosting us today. It's really been a pleasure.
Thank you very much, and I hope future relatives of mine see this and say, what a great guy.
Thank you, Walt.
Thank you very much.
This was wonderful. Thank you so much. Cut. Right?
Very good. That was a great, very interesting. Yeah.